Well, hello everyone. My name's Sue Elson, Independent LinkedIn Specialist, and welcome to LinkedIn for Students and Future Graduates. It's great to have you here, and I'm really excited if you're alternatively listening to the recording. And obviously, I welcome questions in the chat. And if you would also like to mention where you're from, always great to see people. We've already got somebody from Shepparton in Victoria and from the Pilbara in Western Australia. And I know we've got some international guests coming too. So welcome to you all. Christchurch in New Zealand, thank you. Great to see you here. Denman, New South Wales, thanks to Isabella, and Lindley from Dunedin in New Zealand as well. Oh, I'm really great to have a few New Zealanders. I'm really hoping to get there next year for the Career Development Association of New Zealand conference. So if you know when that's going to be, let me know. I want to lock those dates in now. Hamilton, New Zealand as well. Adelaide, thanks, Megan. That's my hometown, I guess, where I was born and raised for the first 28 years of my life. So welcome everybody from wherever you are. I know not everybody's mentioned it in the chat, but really great to have you with us. So this is one of the monthly webinars that I run on the topic of LinkedIn. And today we're going to focus on techniques for students and future graduates. There's a lot of people I know on the call, so welcome to all of you. Some of you have seen me present before, so it's great to be back. Also, 10 ways to use LinkedIn and ways to manage your LinkedIn activity in 20 minutes per week. Now, if you have the opportunity to add the LinkedIn app to your mobile phone, I'm also going to show you how you can search and connect with people live and in person. And I know that, you don't want to hand over a business card with possible germs on it anymore. So you can do all this just by using your device and not touching anything. So really hope to encourage you whenever you're about, personally or professionally, to connect with people you meet on LinkedIn. I also hope to give you amazing, awesome value and at least 3 things that you can do within 3 days after this event. Also, just for turning up, you get access to my first 4 books, and you're welcome to download those via the latest offer link on my sueelson.com website. And there's lots of other ways you can say thank you, but I'll be giving you a couple of very specific ones right at the end of the presentation. I'm an educator at heart, so everything I do is designed to provide information and usefulness to you. Now, if you've got your phone with you, you can hold up your camera to that little QR code. That will take you to the contact page of my website. And there you can follow me on or connect with me on LinkedIn, follow my Sue Elson company page, follow my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, particularly if you like poetry, or Instagram Reels, which I'm just experimenting with. I've got a YouTube channel. I've started on the infamous TikTok, and you can also subscribe to my newsletter or on LinkedIn or my email newsletter. And just to be accountable, every month I run these webinars, I give you an update on my numbers, so you can see I've got a long way to go on TikTok and probably several others, but I'm putting it out there. So feel free to follow me on social media. I like to make sure everything that I share is useful information. So just to give those of you who don't know me a very, very quick background on my experience, I started my career 6 days after my last Year 12 secondary exam at Westpac, Australia's first bank, and I worked there for 11 years in Adelaide. I moved to Melbourne, got a job, found out I was pregnant, got sacked, and as a result of that experience, I did a research project and I studied 96 people who'd moved to Melbourne within the last 5 years. And as a result of that, I set up my first social enterprise, newcomersnetwork.com, in 2001. I set up Camberwell Network in 2012. I'm a member of lots of professional associations, but basically since that experience, I haven't had a real job. So I call myself a gigster, a person who uses technology to attract aligned gigs. And I'm a huge fan of joining professional associations. Some I've relinquished after more than 20 years of membership in the last 12 months because I'm going to be focusing on a writing career as my future direction. But you can learn more about me via that link if you like. Okay, so some quick points. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands wherever you are, and obviously where I am. the Kulin Nation and the Wurundjeri people. And again, if you would like to put your location in the chat, feel free to do so. This presentation is for people of all backgrounds. Now, when you think of students and future graduates, you might think of people, say, between the ages of 15 and 30, but I know there's lots of people who are older than that studying. And ever since I finished my degree in the year 2000, I've been attending between 1 and 4 events every week since then. So I just never stop learning and I love it. This is, however, only information. It's not specific advice for your personal circumstances, although I'm sure there's plenty you will relate to. The slides and video recording link has already been sent to you. If you haven't got it, please contact me. You can leave your video camera off and please put those questions in the chat. I've got the chat box open so I can be interrupted at any time. This is absolutely live, not pre-recorded. I'm going to assume there's a varied level of knowledge, so I'll try and keep things straightforward, but also some tips in there for advanced users. And whilst I'm screen sharing, you will not appear on the recording, but I will turn the recording off right at the end if you'd like to ask any questions that you don't feel comfortable saying in front of the group. You can also privately message me in the chat and I won't announce that you asked the question. So feel free, this is your chance. Any questions related to LinkedIn are perfectly fine. Also, you can see my past clients on my website. There's quite a lot of schools, colleges and universities that I've worked with, both with individual students, with whole year levels and postgrads, you know, a whole bunch of them. So really have enjoyed my work with schools, colleges and universities, probably because I just love teaching. And I've been doing it since 1987, which is a terribly long time. And also, if you can tell me at the end what's been most helpful to you, and as I said, I'll be recommending some ways to say thanks. So this presentation, specifically for all genders, all backgrounds, all beliefs, wherever you come from, anywhere in the world, I trust that I'm being as respectful as possible to everyone. Students and future graduates is the main focus, but if you are somebody who supports one of those people, then obviously there's a lot of information you may like to pass on. Or we're getting some more locations: Gold Coast, Sydney, Tasmania, Auckland, Perth. Excellent, great to see you all here. And suggestions and recommendations will also, you know, be available. And I love it when people get involved. So feel free to, you know, pop anything you want to say in the chat as well. If you want to put your LinkedIn profile in, you know, share that as well, fine. And there is definitely a lot more information for you to read on this next page. So the first one is a recording of a presentation I did for Swinburne University students. So this is where you actually go through the LinkedIn profile and say, do this, do that, do something else. So that's the first video. The next one is where you will find the first article I wrote on LinkedIn on this topic: how to choose your next job or career. The number of times students tell me, I don't have any idea what I want to do, and I've done this course, and or I dropped out, or something happened. So for a lot of people, they're not sure. So definitely follow that one. This item is for anybody who's currently working in a school, college or university and wants to see all the content that I have amassed under that topic. So there's things like finding alumni and marketing for schools and how to deal with parents. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Also, the presentation that I did for Educate Plus, which is an organisation for education management professionals. And then if you want to see the webinar, that's only available for members. But then there's also the slides or the detail is in that article. Then I wrote one for Digistorm on prospective parents and how to engage with those. The actual LinkedIn platform has a section that's designed for higher education professionals, so you might want to find that one. Also, I have been accused of giving advice when it wasn't asked for. So I wrote this next article, probably for myself as much as for everybody else, how to help someone who, you know, doesn't really want help, because we all know that, you know, some students and future grads just don't think they need any advice and they think they're digitally competent, but they're not digitally wise. So hopefully there's enough tips in here for that as well. And then I also got asked to write an article on tough love for the unemployed under the age of 30. So it's not nasty stuff, I'm telling you now. It's all really encouraging. So feel free to check that one out. And of course, today's presentation, these slides, all these links is available on that final link there. So specific tips. Now, I think it's important to clarify the difference between tips for students and future graduates and tips for LinkedIn generally. And one of the things that I think is really important is that in the education section of the LinkedIn profile, that each person list all the subjects they're either studying or completing. So by way of example, I started, as a result of joining the bank, a course at a TAFE college called a Business Certificate in Banking. And I did 8 subjects of it before I threw my hands in the air and said, I just cannot do this anymore. This is not aligned. It just wasn't for me. But I still added that to my LinkedIn profile so that I can be part of the TAFE South Australia alumni on LinkedIn. And then I went searching, I did some personal interest courses, I ended up back doing a business course, and then I eventually found a Bachelor of Business in Administrative Management through the University of South Australia, which I studied by correspondence way back in 1993 as a mature age student at the age of 26. So that ended up being the right course for me. I could have continued further study in postgraduate master's level, but I decided to just keep learning and apply what I'd learned. So yes, obviously my full degree is mentioned on my LinkedIn profile, but so is the partially completed course. This is why I also recommend that if you're a part of a university, you list your education as soon as you get to university. Don't wait until the end of the course. Write it down right now and just say you're currently studying or currently completing or the subjects you have completed. And I know another person who did 3 subjects at one university and then abandoned the entire course and then went to another university. Both of those are on their LinkedIn profile so that they can be part of the alumni for both. Now, another thing that's happened as a result of the pandemic is that a lot of people who are students now have not had the opportunity to do in real life work experience. And this has been a concern, obviously, because they weren't able to practice skills, but they may have been doing other things, unpaid, digitally, whatever, that they could add to their LinkedIn profile. So I definitely encourage you to consider adding that in, even if it's just playing sport, you know, add all those things in. When I was at Westpac and involved in graduate recruitment, we looked at a person's entire background, not just their academic qualifications. So if they were involved in team sports or individual sports or community organisations or community groups or environmental activities, you know, whatever it was, that gave us an indication of how adaptable this person would be if they were going to work in a new role. I absolutely encourage you to connect with everyone you meet and, you know, as I said, personally or professionally and from any of your study. And this is why I recommend that people fill in their LinkedIn profile in their second last year of secondary school. And the reason for the second last is some people will actually leave before the end of secondary school. And also, in the final year of secondary school, everybody's so anxious about their examinations and all of that kind of stuff. They don't actually have the opportunity to practice using LinkedIn, and they may have missed the opportunity to connect with some of their friends. Now, I realise that they may also have favourite teachers, and here in Australia, there's a 2-year policy so that the students cannot connect with a favourite teacher until 2 years after they've finished their study. It could be different in universities. Obviously, it depends on each particular educational institution. But yeah, connect before you lose the opportunity to connect. Also remember that LinkedIn is a database. So if you don't fill in the details, you literally cannot be found. And I like to refer to an example of when I was on a dating website and I mentioned that I was not interested in anybody who likes horse racing or gambling. Now, unfortunately, I was then sent all these people who liked horse racing and gambling. How ironic is that? Because the query that came through, or the algorithm that was used to send me possible people, didn't look for the word not interested. It only saw horse racing and gambling. So again, if you've got all of your keywords, the words you want to be found for, that's going to help. So one of the things I did in my banking career is I detected a lot of fraud. Now, would you believe, more than 30 years later, because that word fraud was on my LinkedIn profile, I was contacted by a recruiter who was looking for somebody with fraud experience. So just one word once can even help you. So I'm an advocate for more words on your LinkedIn profile, provided they make sense, so that you can be found in search results. It's also a network. Now, a lot of people think their life will be safe if they have a job. I disagree entirely. I was retrenched from Westpac because they had no jobs for me interstate. And I've lost many of opportunities since then, contracts that were going to be started that were delayed or cancelled or reorganised. I've had clients who haven't worked out. I've had other clients who have fabulously worked out. And what we need in life to maintain a regular income is a network. These are people who can refer us on to others. They are people who can support us when we need a bit of encouragement. They're people who can provide referrals to other people. And up to 95% of jobs are never advertised. So if you're connected to all of the students and graduates that you know, and perhaps some of their family and friends, then you've got a much greater chance of being found in search results and also getting that referral opportunity. And remember, if you don't tell, you can't sell. Now, I am a typical Australian. I don't like to boast and brag, but I do know the value of having my details accessible. So if my details are on LinkedIn and on the internet, then people can find me when they are ready. Okay, so why even bother with LinkedIn? Don't forget, pop your questions in the chat. First of all, you're going to be Googled by friends, family, colleagues, recruiters, decision makers, fellow students, past and present, peers in the industry, the lecturer who didn't like you, whoever it is, your neighbours, people at parties. It is highly optimized for your name, particularly if you edit your URL, which is the link to your LinkedIn profile. I'll show you how to do that later. I'm also going to recommend that you have your own website, yourname.com, if it's available, or some other version if that's not available. And I know that some people say, oh, do I really have to have my own website? And to be fair, I only got mine 10 years ago. So, you know, you've got a while to wait if you do it at the same age I did. But it's definitely worthwhile because this is the only content you control and you can put whatever you want on it. In the meantime, if you want something free, you can go to business.google.com with your Gmail email address and create a free one-page website there. And then at least you've got a presence on the internet apart from your LinkedIn. Also, there are so many million members worldwide, over 830, over 17 million of those are in Australia. And interestingly, nearly 60% of the people on LinkedIn are aged between 25 and 34. Which is pretty exciting because when I first joined on the 21st of December, 2003, well, I was probably, around that age, but at the time it seemed like a lot of older people were there. So that's definitely not the case now. It is a young cohort of people on LinkedIn. That said, I'd say most of their profiles are not complete. So yeah, take that how you like, but obviously today I'm going to be encouraging you to fill in your profile in a lot more detail. The other thing that happens is if you don't write down what you've done over the years, I guarantee you will forget. Now, when I first left the bank and came to Melbourne, I had 11 years of experience and a 10-page resume. Nobody on earth wants to see a 10-page resume, but they're quite happy to look at a 10-page LinkedIn profile. And the benefit of me having written all that down is that when I've needed to refer to something I did back in the bank, I've got that written record. So this is another good reason for you to spend some time writing up what you've done on your LinkedIn profile. So let's start with the top 10 techniques for students and future graduates. You might like to tick off how many of these you are already doing. Decide who to connect with. This is the number one issue. Everybody says, I don't know who to connect to, and I get these requests from these random people and I don't know what to do with it. Well, you can ignore it. I mean, if it's not relevant to you, that's fine. You need to create your own selection criteria. So pretty much anyone who's in Australia, provided I think they won't spam me, I will connect with. And then anybody internationally, there needs to be kind of a reason, like we've done an event together, or we share an interest in LinkedIn or careers or something like that. And then there's some others who I know are just going to spam me by looking at their profiles, so I just delete them. If they are inappropriate, I will definitely report them. I have no shame and I will always do it. So please, it's not a dating platform, although I have met someone at a conference who said it worked very well for him as a dating one. So yeah. I also recommend that you follow company pages of organisations where you would like to work. And if you want to find someone on LinkedIn and you don't have many connections, it could be very difficult to find them. So what you can do is a Google advanced search. So in the top box of that link, you'll see the name. So you can put in their name in quotation marks and any other words that might be written on their LinkedIn profile, like the name of the university or something. And then you go down to another box called site and you choose linkedin.com, and the Google advanced search will search every single profile on the entire LinkedIn platform. So you won't be limited just by the people who are first connections, people you already know. You'll be able to search absolutely everybody on LinkedIn. And a lot of people in sales love hearing about that tip. Tom's mentioned agreed to work out what you want to, who you want to connect with, and think of a strategy why you want to connect with them. I have found this works over many years. Well done, Tom. Yes, and look, what I also love is when I first went online way back in 2001, it's been really interesting to watch the journeys of some of the people that I first met at the launch of Newcomers Network and see how many people change industries and roles and get more arty as they get older. It's really fascinating. So, and you know, why wouldn't I want to connect with somebody I've met? Sometimes people will contact me 8 or 10 years after they met me and say, okay, Sue, now I need some help with LinkedIn. So it's really good to do. So the next thing I'm going to suggest is you complete your LinkedIn profile in detail. And one of the things that most people do not do is talk about their achievements. Now, you cannot say, I cut $25 billion off of the operating budget or something like that. That's sensitive information. But you can say things like improved productivity by 24% or something that doesn't provide numbers and details, but it just gives a general indication of what you've been able to do. Now, an achievement is something that you did really well that you were supposed to do in a job, or something you did over and above what was originally required. So let's say you've just started out in a part-time job at the local supermarket, and originally you were hired just to stock the shelves after hours. And now you've been invited to train the other staff, you've been promoted to chief checkout supervisor, you've been, you initiated, this is what actually happened from one of my clients, he initiated a cleanup of the butcher room or something or another. So yeah, you can list these things as actual achievements. I just realized I haven't turned on the power for my laptop. Okay, absolutely fill in as many sections as possible. As I said before, include the subjects you've been studying and or completed. And when you choose the education provider where you're studying, you should be able to type in their name and have them appear in a drop-down box. Now, if your school, college or university does not appear, it could mean that they still have something called a company page instead of a school page on LinkedIn. So you'll need to contact someone at the institution and ask them to upgrade their listing from a company page to a school page. And that way you can show them as your provider of education. Now, this then adds you to their alumni so that you can keep in touch with what that institution is doing long after you've left, and also connect with other students from there as well. Lindley has mentioned going back to showing breadth of experience. How would you recommend students do that? E.g., they can add a volunteer section, but what about sport and other kinds of experience in the experience section or somewhere else? Okay, so The volunteer section, volunteer experience, is a really great one to include. So if you've been an umpire in the sports area, you know, that's terrific. You can definitely put it in there. You could alternatively list it in projects if it was something, you know, more specific, and sport and other kinds. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, I, at one stage, was invited to join the council, which is like the board of the Australian Human Resources Institute here in Victoria, which is quite a prestigious position. And because I was working with a lot of HR professionals, human resources professionals at the time, I felt it was important to mention that in my professional experience section. But when my role ended, because I was moving out of HR and more into other things, I left it only in the volunteer section. Now, let's say you didn't have any professional work experience, but you had been volunteering in a role somewhere and you want to have something in your experience section, then I would definitely recommend that you list whatever it is. You do not need to tell people it was done on a voluntary basis. Now, let's say you got an internship and it was every Friday and you worked 8 hours, you could put that in your experience section. I am not suggesting that you work 60 hours a week on a volunteer basis unless there is a very good training or information exchange. I mean, I don't recommend that. But yes, I hope that answers the question, Lindley. Let me know if you need any more information. So the number 3 tip, customize your LinkedIn URL. So the quickest way to show you how to do this is to just show you how to do it. Now, this is me LinkedIn Live, so we'll just go to my LinkedIn profile. And over here on the top right, whoops, that was my banner. We'll just move that out of the way. I've got lots of things on my screen here now, so it's going to be a bit hard to move it. There we go. So over here on the right of your LinkedIn profile is edit your URL. So you can see already that mine is linkedin.com/in/Sue Elson. But most people, when they create a LinkedIn profile, it will be first name, dash last name, dash a whole bunch of numbers and letters. So what you do is you just go over here and you click this pen. And this is like, if you do nothing else on your LinkedIn profile today, this is one of the most important things to do. You just click the pen and you see if it's available. Now, if that's not available, you can put a dash between your first and last name. And I also recommend this for names that might not be familiar in your country of origin. So Australia is a very multicultural nation, and sometimes the difference between the first name and the last name is difficult to work out. So a dash can be really useful in that situation. And also if the original just one word is not available. The other option is to put in something afterwards. So you could put in a number, you could put in your degree qualification, whatever, but you do need to personalize that URL. That will actually optimize your name in Google search results and look way better on your resume or CV. Susan's put in a comment here. Last year, LinkedIn stated in results of a recruiter survey that about 45% of employers worldwide consider relevant volunteer experience to be equal to paid employment. Yes, absolutely. And as I said, when we were doing the graduate recruitment program way back in the late 80s, early 90s, that volunteer experience was essential. And also, oh, thank you, Amy. She's done it already. Congratulations, gold star to you. Yeah, volunteer, like I have done an enormous amount of voluntary work. I cannot tell you how much voluntary work. This is voluntary, obviously. Camberwell Network that I run is voluntary. Newcomers Network is voluntary. I've been at Scout Jamborees. I've been to 2 of those for 2 weeks at a time, volunteering, took kids out sailing on Sydney Harbour, which was fabulous. I've had some of the best experiences doing volunteer work. So yeah, absolutely. And gained skills that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't done voluntary work. So yeah, that's what you need to do. Also on this screen, just to get a little bit sidetracked, if for any reason you need to sort of hide your LinkedIn profile, something terrible's happened, you can just go in here and turn your visibility off. So you never need to delete your profile. And if you really want to have a sabbatical from the whole online world, you can also do something called hibernate. your LinkedIn profile in the settings. So let's get back to the things that are most important. Loving the chat comments. Thank you for your engagement. Makes it much more interesting than just the things I've got to add. So thank you for your contributions there. So the next thing is your headline. Now, this is the #1 spot for your keywords. So if you don't have the keywords that you would like to be found for in your headline, which is directly underneath your name, then you're wasting your time. If you just say student, that's no good. If you say looking for new opportunities, that is absolutely pointless. What you need to do is put in words. So obviously, up to 65% of people will spend most of their time looking at your photograph. So you need to be looking at the camera, smiling with your teeth showing, preferably wearing a high neck garment so it frames your face. And yeah, and make sure, as I said, your eyes on that 1/3 line. But you start off with your headline, and this is my formula. Other LinkedIn trainers will give you a better suggestion or a different suggestion according to what they believe is the right way to use LinkedIn. But mine is to start with a label. So if I met you at a networking event and I said, "Hi, my name's Sue. What do you do?" I hate that question, by the way. I don't normally ask it. And you could say, "I'm an aspiring accountant." Now, the benefit of putting that on your LinkedIn profile is you will come up in search results for, guess what, accountant. And so you've got a much better chance of being found by decision makers. Now, when they look at it, they'll say, right, you're not an accountant right now, you're aspiring, or you could say a future accountant or pending accountant, whatever adjective you would like to describe yourself. But I met a young man, and seriously, he had looked for a very long time to get work. And as soon as he changed his headline, he got an opportunity. It was so exciting. Now, the other benefit of having that label is when I was Sue Everything, I didn't get work. But when I said I'm a LinkedIn specialist, people started to remember that that's what I do. And that meant every time they saw me in the news feed, they saw my label first. So it helped with that memory recall. After my label are my keywords. Now, that's not to say I just do LinkedIn all the time. I don't. I help build websites. I do social media. I do different writing things. I do marketing for small business. I run events, a whole bunch of other things that I do. But the thing I want to be known for, and I want my LinkedIn profile to help me with, is getting those clients who need some assistance with LinkedIn. Now, here for this accountant example, I've included some other keywords. I've also included some technology and post-nominals that might be relevant depending on what that person is trying to achieve. And then at the end, I like to put in something personal about you because it just makes it a whole lot more interesting. And I'm a woman of a certain age at 57, and I want people to know I'm still active and alive. So that's why I've mentioned dancer on my LinkedIn profile. Now, interestingly, I have found out that I've come up in search results for dancer. Fortunately, nobody's asked me to be a dancer for them because that would be terrible. But that's my formula. And if you would like more details, feel free to follow that link. Now, on your mobile phone, there are a few bells and whistles that you can add, and you can only do it via the mobile phone app. So the first thing you can do is you can add a little 30-second introductory video. And when you do, there will be a grey box around that photo. You can also add an audio announcement. Hi, Sue Elson, independent LinkedIn specialist. So that way people get to know how to pronounce your name. And then the other thing you can do is you can put this little featured link. So whatever is most important, the link you want most people to know about, you can put that in that spot there. And those options are only available via the LinkedIn app. So I'm sure most students and future grads would much rather do things on their phone, but that's definitely one thing to do. Now, the next thing is to join and or follow professional associations. I've already mentioned how fabulous it is to be a member of certain bodies. And if you join as a student, it is way cheaper and sometimes even free than if you join once you've finished your studies. So definitely recommend that you join either at the beginning of your studies or in the last year, whatever, because that way you get the insight and the opportunity to be involved in the programs of that professional association. So as an example, with the Australian Human Resources Institute, they had a mentoring program that a student member could access free of charge. How cool is that? So definitely worthwhile becoming a member. Now, if you don't know the professional bodies that are relevant to your area of expertise, here in Australia, there's a website called myfuture.edu.au, and you can search by occupation. And then when you click that occupation, it will say industry websites, and it will show you the professional bodies associated with that occupation. So the My Future website has a whole bunch of other resources. It's available for free for people in Victoria. So if you're somewhere else in Australia and they want to charge you, just use a Victorian postcode when you sign up, and look at the resources. There's career quizzes, there's details about salary and future prospects and all sorts of things in there. Now, that said, I did work with a broadcast engineer from overseas, and we found out that most people in broadcasting were not engineers, but we filled out her LinkedIn profile in full. And of course, she got work in that area because she was the only person who even had a LinkedIn profile. So don't assume because there's not many jobs available in that area that if you are the only person on LinkedIn, you could still get them. Now, the next thing is, once you've filled in your profile, you need to think about how will you engage on LinkedIn. Now, you can be just as popular, well-recognized, develop your personal brand, if that's what you'd like to call it, by engaging with other people's stuff. So you can like, comment, share, you can connect with your friends and endorse their skills. I heard of a bunch of engineering students who all endorsed each other for engineering before they'd finished their course. I thought that was quite fun. You can write recommendations for people that you meet, remembering that what you write could be used in court, so only write what you actually observed. And, they'll appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to write them a recommendation. The second stage is you can look for fabulous things, just like Susan's mentioned that she can share out that volunteer experience piece. But if you do find content somewhere else that you think people might be interested in, you can share it as a post. And when you click on the little post box, you will get this new screen, which gives you 3 dots. And then you get all of these choices as the way to share content. So rather than just a photo, video, a job, an article, an event, you've got all these other options as well. And the third stage is when you start creating your own content, and you can share it as a post, which goes through the newsfeed, articles, which will be permanently there, events and news and so on. Stephen's asked a fabulous question. Is it helpful to add more than 10 years of experience when applying for entry-level roles? Great question, Stephen. Okay. First of all, before you delete anything off your LinkedIn profile, please keep a copy of it, because once you remove something off the screen, it's gone. So first of all, back it up. Now, I believe that if you've decided you'd like to go for entry-level positions, this is what I did when I came from Westpac. When I first arrived in Melbourne, I really only wanted to do temporary work. I didn't want a senior level position. I wanted to allow time to adjust to living in a new city and making new friends and all of that sort of stuff. So what I did was I dumbed down my resume to 1 page, and I said I've done customer service and filing and typing and administration, and it was all related to Westpac, but I only focused on the skills that would be relevant for an entry-level position. So that's what I did. Now, the second question is, okay, is it entry level in your same industry or in a different industry? So if you've had extensive experience, I don't know, in accounting, and you've now decided to become an artist, if you just update your photo, so you look like an artist, your headline, so it looks like an artist, and your current job that looks like an artist, then the algorithm favors those 3 sections the most. So it will be fine. You can just leave all that accounting stuff there and now talk about your artistic career, if that's what you like. It's in the same industry. Okay. The other thing to think about is you can remove some of that sort of senior level experience if you wish. But the other thing to think about is, let's say you don't want as much pressure changing industries or, changing roles. What you can actually do is you can use your network of people you know in the industry and say, look, guys, I don't want to work 5 days a week as a senior executive anymore. I want to stay in the industry and I'm only looking for 2 days a week, and reach out to people and see if that's an option, because sometimes 2 days a week at a similar level of technical capability can be just as good as, 5 days, 5 days of a very basic level, if that makes sense. So feel free to contact me directly if you'd like more information than that. But yeah, there's a number of ways to manage that situation. But good on you, Stephen, and thanks for asking that courageous question. Number 8, consider creating a company page for your name. And I know you're thinking, my goodness, I'm not a company, but there are an enormous number of people who are creating side hustles, little projects on the side. And I created this Sue Elson company page. And as you can see here, I've got 552 followers. And I've also got this little call to action box on there, so that if somebody wants to reach out to me, it sort of gives people a prompt that they can message me via that lead generation form. So if they accidentally end up on my company page, but they still want to just contact me personally, they can use this little new feature here. So I think it's definitely worth it. The other reason I like having a company page in my own name is everything I publish as Sue Elson on my personal profile, I also publish on my company page, because then there's a lovely index of the whole lot that if people just check out my company page, it's all there. And it also means I have this nice little logo on my personal profile as well. So if you do have a regular business, your own little side hustle brand, you can definitely do that in your brand name rather than your name. Now, there's lots of settings you can adjust. I suggest that you turn off autoplay videos, and you can do that, via these little links here. You can turn off people also viewed, so you don't showcase other people. You can look at people anonymously. So you've got a job interview tomorrow, you don't want them to know you've looked at them. You can go anonymous and then check it out. You can hide your profile. You can hibernate your profile. There's lots of other settings to consider. You might want to turn on something called creator mode if you really want to be known for a particular topic, and there's an article on that via that bottom link as well. So the other thing to do is keep an eye on your stats. So if you were in charge of a whole bunch of students, at the beginning of the year, you could collect all their stats, and then they could all update their LinkedIn profiles, and then 3 months later, see how those numbers have changed, because I can guarantee you, if you do the suggestions that I recommend, you will definitely get more search results, more profile views, and more opportunities. So how can you actually use LinkedIn? Well, if you're going to be on a social media platform, they're all greedy megalomaniacs, and they don't want you just telling your story, they want you sharing your story. And they also want to see you engaging with other people's. Now, in the early days, there was only a thumbs up. Now we've got all these other options, including the latest one, which is a nice big smiley face. So it's good that, it's going to be a bit more fun on LinkedIn than all this serious business stuff all the time. I'm not a fan of the curious one. I feel like it's a bit passive aggressive. So I never use that one. But also, because I've got a company page and I manage company pages for other people, I can choose to respond either as myself or as somebody else. So if you are mentioned in a post and you like it and you comment on it, that will help that post go more viral. And if you make a nice lengthy comment, people will be more likely to see that you've made that comment, and you can get quite a lot of free PR just by doing that, particularly if it's related to the area you'd like to work in. Now, if you're at school or university, you might be able to provide information to the social media team and think about what you do in your studies and whether that could be something that the school, college or university might be able to share on their social media. And then you can engage with it, make sure they @mention you so you know when it's being posted, and provide them with information. There's more tips on how to make things go viral. This particular post here had 32,000 visits. And the reason it did is as people were scrolling through the news feed, they slowed down, and that helped that post go really viral. Got another question here. Would you recommend students adding their academic projects portfolio under project section or create a company page? Great question. I'd suggest in the project section because it stays there permanently, whereas if it was just put on their company page, it would disappear over time. So definitely on the project page. Now, if you download the 120 Ways to Achieve Your Purpose with LinkedIn book, there is a section on projects in there, and it tells you the items to include in that project summary, like the title, the description, difficulties you overcame, the results, the feedback, the reporting. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that I suggest that you include in the project information. Great question. Thanks, Meta. Okay. Now, in your LinkedIn content strategy, you can also use a few of the features of the platform. So there's been a bit of argument about should you use emojis? Well, I say yes, but I don't use pictures of pizza as my emojis. I use the ticks or the graphs or the rocket ship or sometimes the smiley face. So I definitely use those. I use @ mentions. So any company who I talk about, any individual who I talk about. I do not spam tag. So I don't tag somebody famous to hope that they'll look at me. That's not on. I don't hassle people to like my posts. I definitely don't do any of that. But hashtags are important. I put hashtag Sue Elson on a lot of my posts now. So if people want to check out my other content, they can just click that. You can also write search engine optimized articles. So if you Google tough love unemployed, you will actually see my LinkedIn article there. I also recommend that you update your profile every year at least, because unless we sort of make a note to ourselves, we may forget to do that. So definitely do that. And also, if there are people who are important in your life, and, you know, let's say there's 3 people who've really supported you, make sure you reach out to them, you know, once or twice a year to keep that relationship alive. Now, adding connections. So this is the time where I remind you to use your LinkedIn app and open it up in the search box. You press the search box. So here are the steps. So you, first of all, you press in the search box of the LinkedIn app, then you press the little dots on the side, then your little code will come up. So you need to choose scan and then you enable it on your device and turn on your settings on your phone. Now, I've used an iPhone, so that's the screenshots for iPhone. It will be similar sort of thing for an Android. And then this is the other person's profile. So you scan that QR code and their details will pop up on the screen. And there'll be a blue button which says either follow or connect. And there will also be the 3 dots on the side. So you must click the 3 dots. And then you choose personalize the invite and say, nice to meet you at the mixer for students last night or today or whatever. And then you send off the invitation. So that way the person remembers how on earth they met you, because they could have completely forgotten your name by now. But this is a process that you can use anytime. Friends, family, people you meet at parties, you know, connect with them on LinkedIn. Lots of people had Facebook, now they don't. Now they have Instagram. Or they have TikTok, or they have something else. But most people who get LinkedIn keep it. It seems to be the one platform that people keep, even if they don't log on, you know, all the time. So this is why I thoroughly encourage you to do that. It's very simple and good practice to have in place. Now, you also need to set some goals. So I was working with a person who was starting up a brand new business yesterday, and she needs to earn at least $300 a week to survive. So rather than think about, oh, I could have a website and I could have Facebook ads and I could do this, I could do that, all she needs to think about in the beginning is how can she get $300 a week? Who can she find who will pay her $300 a week? Could be 3 people $100 each, or 1 person $300. And then she's got a business and she's off and running. So one of the things that you can do under the Open To button on your LinkedIn profile, you can open to finding a job. This might be another good one for you, Stephen, and open to providing services. And you can list 10 services. You can also add media. So if you're an artist, you know, you can put in some lovely pictures of your art and away you go. So a lot of people have not filled in this section on their LinkedIn profile. So if you're the only person who has completed it for your area of expertise, you know, connected to someone you know, then you could appear in those search results. I definitely recommend that one. You also need to abide by the social media policy. So as I said before, if you're a student, you may not be able to connect with your lecturer, teacher, tutor, whatever. But always I recommend being professional in everything you do. Isabella, where is the best place to put programs you're participating in, internal or external, to the university on your LinkedIn profile? For example, I'm participating in a leadership program and a mentor program. Should these go under volunteering or courses? Okay, I would pick volunteering because you have a lot more boxes to fill in where you can provide a lot more detail. Whereas if it was under courses, all it would be is name of course, what role it's associated with, and that's it. So really not much information at all. So I would suggest either under volunteering or under projects. So yeah. Claire's asked, you may have just said this, but where do you put open to providing services on your profile? Okay, let me show you where this is. So if you visit your LinkedIn profile, there's this big open to button, and there's normally 3 sections on it. Open to work, providing services, and hiring. But there's only one left on mine because I filled out the other 2. So most people who are looking for work have filled in this open to work button, but they haven't filled in the providing services. So if I was looking for a content writer, I would just put that search query up the top, and sure, I could look for people who offer it, but I could also look for people who provide services in content writing, and then I'll see all these profiles, and that might be a better fit for me. So that's why we fill that one in. Thank you, Isabella. Happy to clarify for you. Okay, consider writing articles. Now, I find a lot of people who are at the beginning of their work journey don't feel comfortable about sharing their views online. And I'm so disappointed. I love hearing a young person's perspective on the world. Now, I don't suggest they bag the government and bitch about this and bitch about that. I'm always solution focused. But if you have ideas, please, please write them down and share them. Your insights are from your unique perspective. So just as your fingerprint is unique, so is your writing. And somebody else could have written 150 articles on your topic, but your version of that topic is different. So please consider writing them. Please keep a copy in the unlikely event it's deleted. So I normally email everything I've written to myself. I also copy and paste the link when it's published to archive.org/web so that it's kept permanently on the internet. And then there's this article I've written about, should you pay for social media ads? Because I find a lot of people think the best way to get search results is just to pay for ads. And I believe it's amazing content and building a digital asset. So yeah. And we've got somebody who has to leave. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. All right, so the final one is, or almost final, is bring your artistic flair to LinkedIn, your story. If you are going to be building up your presence online for that side hustle, remember that your website is the only thing you own, and then there's those other places you can also put your details online to make that website rank. Consistency is the key, and you will need to abide by the LinkedIn user agreement, which says you are not allowed to automate things. And I definitely encourage you to keep learning. Add your school email address to your LinkedIn profile, because people know you via that email address, so never need to remove it, even when it no longer works, because people can still find you via that old email address. And also remember that if you're part of a school, you can get free access to LinkedIn Learning, or if you're a member of your local library in Australia, you can also get free access to LinkedIn Learning. And this gives you access to a whole bunch of micro credentials, and you can list 50 of them in the certification section of your LinkedIn profile. So definitely finishing your course is not the end of study, but the good news is you can choose what you study when you do finish the course. So how can you manage your LinkedIn activity in 20 minutes a week? Well, I suggest you log in, engage with the newsfeed, check out your notifications, look at your network connection requests and event invitations and decide whether you're going to go to those. Look at the content shared by your school, your employer, or your enterprise that you're a part of for a couple of minutes. update your own profile if there's something, oh, I must add that link, or I had that achievement, or I finished that project, whatever. Put an item in the news feed and then reflect on anything else. You might want to provide an endorsement to someone, write them a recommendation, give some kudos. And if you want to keep up to date with the changes of what's happening on LinkedIn, you can subscribe to that LinkedIn newsletter. And Tim's put in his URL into the chat. So if you'd like to connect with Tim, feel free to do so. Don't forget, Tim, we want to see that URL change to just your name in the future. So where to from here? I said at the beginning, please choose 3 things you can do in the next 3 days. There's been some research that suggests if you don't do something within 72 hours of hearing it, you won't do it at all. So are you going to review these slides? Click on a couple of links, change a URL, like someone's post, like what are you going to do? Make a mental note to do that. Oh, excellent. Lindley's already said, set up a company page for her side hustle. Woohoo! I'm so excited for you, Lindley. Give me a link and I'll make sure I follow it. You can actually invite your connections to follow your company page. So please do that, Lindley. I'll be happy to support you. So what else is available? Well, you can get the recording via that link. The slides are already on there. There's a ridiculously long list of publications that I've done. You can just watch my videos if that's your preferred format. You can register for the next LinkedIn webinar, and it's LinkedIn for tradespeople. Now, sadly, I do not know many tradespeople on LinkedIn. So if you are connected to your friendly tradesperson, please send them the link because I'd love to help them out. I'd also love to help the poor, long-suffering partners of those tradespeople who get to do all the bookkeeping, accounting, and everything else, marketing, etc., etc. So that will be the next one on the 14th of September. My other presentations, including including one for the Australian Society of Authors on improving your author presence, is also coming. Denia has raised her hand. Fire away if you'd just like to unmute your microphone, Denia. No, might have been a mistake. Yes, and also professional services. If you would like me to work one-on-one with you, or you and a partner, that's 175 Australian dollars per hour. And I also do group presentations to schools, colleges, and universities. Yes, Gabrielle, tradies are not not enough on LinkedIn. Lindley said, her son's a mechanic, is getting approaches from recruiters. That's because he's the only mechanic on LinkedIn, probably, Lindley. So that's why it's so important for tradies to get on there. A pest inspection company just added me on LinkedIn. Oh, well, that's interesting, Amy. Not sure whether that's relevant to you or not. Emma's going to review her profile, check a URL and QR code, and adding her services now. Oh, I love a person who takes action immediately. Well done, Emma. And Scott's going to get their school to change from a company page to a school page. Scott, if you can find the person to do that, you are doing so well. If you have a school email address on your LinkedIn account, you might be able to claim access to the page and do it yourself. So just consider that as another option, but please make sure that you add other admins from the school to the school page profile, because obviously when you leave, other people need to be able to administer it. Amy's also used the QR code and praised my presentation. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. 7 new messages. Oh my goodness, how am I going to keep up? Okay, I'll come back to those. I'll just move on to the next slide. All of the previous webinars that I've done in this series are available for free. No email address, no login, nothing. You can go through these. Any of you who are career specialists, this was my most popular one, the very first one I did, and is really, really useful if you help people with their career. So definitely encourage you to consider that one, but there's plenty of others there as well that you can check out. Don't forget to follow me on social media. I want to see those numbers increase every time. And don't forget, here's your free gift for coming, access to my first 4 books. This one is strategic for LinkedIn. This one is very story driven. So if you're not really sure about how to tackle the whole job thing, this is a very supportive and encouraging book with lots of stories. This one's driven with case studies, And Gigsters is basically my journey of how to make money out of not having a real job. And it requires some, particular skills. And I've been doing it for a long time. This is not some newfangled approach that's, just started. I've been doing it. And that book, believe it or not, was written before COVID-19. So it's even more relevant now because the increase in technology means a lot of jobs are changing. So I will look at the message in a moment, but if you want to add as well, what's been most helpful to you today, what questions you may have, and you can choose your way to say thank you. So you can add a comment in the Zoom chat now, because I keep a record of the chat and I make sure that I put some of those comments on the website. You can create a social media post and say, hi everyone, I went to this webinar, check it out, there's the link. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already. You can endorse my skills on LinkedIn training, and you can write a recommendation if we're connected. You could write a Google review. I've got 114 of those. And you can also follow me on social media or contact me directly. So and there's the little quick scan code if you want to do it by phone. So let me go through these chats. Claire's already set up her side hustle page. So folks, if you want to follow Claire, please do so. Amy said it was interesting. Gabrielle's just added her services page. Oh, Pesco owner we work with. Oh, excellent. Okay. How does someone provide a reference check for a defunct company? That is a tricky question, Stephen. I presume that defunct company no longer has a company profile, but when somebody writes a recommendation, they're writing it from themselves as a person. So it usually describes the person who wrote it in their current job. So you don't need to have a company profile to be able to write someone a recommendation. Now, what I sometimes do is if somebody's worked for a company that was taken over by another one, what I will do is I'll say that they work for the new company, but in the description box, what I will actually say is previously known as, and that's another way to sort of still have a logo on your LinkedIn profile. Paul's already got my books from my book launch in Melbourne a few years ago, as does my daughter, who has found them great for her career. Oh, Paul, that brings me so much joy. I wrote 3 80,000-word books in 8 months. It was the best year of my life. I was able to collect all my thoughts and put them on paper. And I love hearing that people access them. That's why I have them on ResearchGate. So there's no barrier to entry. So I'm thrilled to hear they're still being read. Look forward to further links. Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Laura. And my enthusiasm. Yes, Laura, I love doing this stuff. Zarina, would love to chat further with you about how to educate your year 11, 12s about their LinkedIn profile. Happy to chat about that, Zarina. Thank you, Scott. So much material in an hour. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that anonymous comment. Glad to hear it. Informative presentation, share some of the tips. Would you believe I've had a number of schools in New York reach out to me saying that they've referenced my articles in their materials for students. And that's because LinkedIn took out that students page of content and I'm on the first page of Google search results for LinkedIn for students. So that's pretty exciting. Jenny's keeping up to date. Stephen, thanks for sharing expertise. Susan, you have a plethora of LinkedIn knowledge, ideas and tips. Plan to update my profile today. Oh, I love that word, today. That's a really good word to use on posts. Today I went to. So even if somebody reads this in 3 weeks' time, they'll still think it's current information. It's a really fantastic word to start off your post with. Adding a few sections that you recommend. Thanks for sharing your brilliance. Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Susan. And Lily, thanks for lots of nuggets in there to further develop the teaching I do with uni students. Yes, and appreciate your generosity. Yes, I like to be known as generous and always happy to do that. So what I'm going to do now is turn off the slides and I'm happy to answer questions. Whoa, yeah, wow, I'm just getting lots of messages here. I'll stop sharing the screen so that we can just see one another on the screen. That's a really impressive list of names on the screen. So thank you. Yes, Liz, the recording will be available. So on my YouTube channel later today, if for any reason it doesn't work, I'll just redo the whole thing and record another one. So yep, just check out my YouTube channel and you'll see it, or the link that you were sent, it will be on that page of the website. So that's also an option. So if anybody would like to raise their hand via the Zoom reactions box or just unmute, I'm happy to answer questions publicly. I'll wait a couple of minutes to see anybody, and if nobody raves in front of the entire audience, that's fine. I will then turn off the recording and then we can ask those questions without anyone else hearing. So does anybody want a public question or comment? Looks like no one mutes. So what I'll do is I'll turn off the recording. Thank you to those people who are listening to the recording. Great that everybody could be here. So fabulous that you are able to join me. Thank you.